we have to acknowledge the fact that the Utah Jazz are playing so much better ball over the last 10 or so games than they were previously. They were down there towards 13th in the conference, 12th, 13th. They shot all the way up to almost 500 as of today's recording. I want to say they're about one game out of 500. And a big part of that is, of course, the big name guys, Jordan Clarkson, Markkanen, Walker Kessler. But they have a rookie of their own that's had some solid play this season. And I want to give him a shout out real quick here. That name is Keyonte George. Jazz selected this guard here back half of the lottery. But Keyonte has really made some strides in this game as well over the course of the season. And, he's a different player from Coulibaly. He's 6'4", which, it's a good size for a guard. He makes more of his mark on the playmaking side, offensive side. So for him, he's second in rookie assists. That's 4.6. He's sixth in rookie points at 10.9, just under 11 points a game. And you look at his percentages, it's the inverse of Coulibaly. So Coulibaly had solid 2-point and 3-point percentages with a subpar free throw percentage. For Keyonte George, it is subpar 2 and 3-point percentages with a decent free throw percentage at about 77%. For Keyonte, I think he's going to grow into at least a decent shooter. I look at his form. I look at the fact that he's taking some tough shots, and that's kind of dragging down his percentages a little bit. I watched a little bit of film earlier today on him, a couple of his games. He really just needs to kind of learn how to pick his spots a little bit better. That's one of my main takeaways. He's a rookie guard. He's going to have these growing pains. That's one of the things that he's going to learn in time. It's like you don't have to go out there and jack up a shot off of one screen. You can get that shot almost anytime you want with your handle, with screeners like Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen. You're going to have opportunities. You don't have to take the very first thing you see off of every possession. So he's going to need to do that. Like Coulibaly, he's going to need to take care of the ball a little bit better. The turnover percentage is not as high as Coulibaly, but it's still about 15%. That puts him in the bottom fourth of the league, just about. But he does show a knack for being a pretty solid floor general. Gets a decent amount of assists. Definitely needs to work on taking care of the ball once he does have the ball in his hands. But there are some good flashes from Keyonte on the offensive side of the ball, as opposed to Coulibaly's defensive side. But he's selling into a good role with the Jazz. He's playing about 20 to 25 minutes a game. He's not starting, but he's coming off the bench. He's making good things happen, and it's working for the Jazz. They're winning games here so far. He's filling in a role. It's tough to fill a role left by Mike Conley. You think about a guy that did so many things, good things for that team for so long. He's no longer there, so that's a tough spot to be in. So just a few notes from Keyonte George. He's one of the guys I was watching them most closely going into the draft, and by all accounts, he's been pretty impressive so far.
I totally agree. I remember last year, even before the season had even started, he was one of the four who I thought might be like in that top four conversation. It was him, Amen, Scoot, and Wemby to me. I thought he was that level of prospect. And then over the course of the season, it was easy to fall a little bit down on him. When you were watching him in his high school tape and you saw his numbers, as a pull-up shooter, the trust was almost instant. This is a 38 to 39% high volume shooter. He can shoot it off of screens, and at the lower levels, physically, he's stronger than his competition. So you could really see him almost as like a 3-level scorer. At least that's how I felt. Then when he was at Baylor, questions arose a little bit more. He was having a little bit of trouble getting to the rim, which is a problem he still currently has, which is why his 2-point percentage is so low. Right. And at Baylor, the other issue was it felt like at times he was playing too much of what I would consider almost like a shooting guard, even though he's a little bit small for that. And he was struggling in that position to be able to make passes. So watching the Jazz and Will Hardy use him completely differently, I think has been a real boon to his game. I like his pick and roll chemistry with Walker Kessler. His shot selection at times is a little bit iffy at best, but I feel like in the pick and roll, he actually has good chemistry with Walker Kessler. He's crafty as a dribbler, although he doesn't always know where he wants to go. I wish he used change of tempo a little bit more, because there are times when I feel like he's just speeding towards the rim without a plan and just hoping, let me just check this up. Please, no one block this. Please let this go in. And that's typically when disaster occurs. The turnovers and stuff, I mean, he's a rookie guard. I mean, those things tend to even themselves out over time. I still have a lot of faith in his playmaking after watching him in this specific role with the Jazz, and I have a lot of faith in his shooting. I know he only shot like, what was it, 33% last year in college, and I know the numbers are looking low right now. But I think as he grows more comfortable and his shot selection improves a little bit more, and he grows a little bit more comfortable with, okay, off the screen, sometimes I should shoot this immediately because that is the look they drew up for me. But sometimes let me take a dribble, let me take a pause, let me assess what's going on, and then go into my pull up. I think this is someone who could be a 37%, maybe 38% level, high volume 3-point shooter. And
Mhm.
then it's just about developing craft more as a rim finisher, maybe watching some Jalen Brunson. And I mean, overall, I went through the archives and I started looking for what I would consider comparable rookie seasons in terms of playmaking, proclivity for actually drawing free throws because he's really good at that because he plays so physically and draws contact, and shooting outside the arc and inside the arc. And two weird names popped up: Jason Williams and Kirk Heinrich. So
Interesting.
those were two of the names that popped up as comparisons. If you looked at similar free throw rates, shooting percentages across the floor, and the ability to pass the ball. So I just found that interesting.
Those are really good comparisons. Two names I didn't initially think of. They're more of the forgotten names in NBA
Yeah,
history, if we're being honest, especially Kirk Heinrich. Like
yeah,
a lot of players or a lot of people in general don't think of Kirk Heinrich when they think of, some of the better point guards to grace the NBA over the past 20 years, but he really fits the bill. So, obviously for a guy like Keyonte where he was drafted, you would want him to be a little bit more prolific than maybe a Kirk Heinrich. But, in terms of a starting point, that's a good place to be because they both had pretty long careers in the NBA. They both accomplished a lot. They were starters for a long time. So, if he's going to fit that mold, specifically from a passing playmaking perspective, he's already on a pretty good path to being a solid player. Now, for him, also, you mentioned the growing pains, the fact that he's a rookie guard. I mean, I agree that those are things that are just going to happen. They're not necessarily outliers as far as the turnover percentage, the 2-point percentage. Those are things that are going to happen over time, especially as, yes, you mentioned the craft. Watching tape of Brunson and these other players that have gotten so crafty, maybe a little bit of Kyrie Irving here or there, it's going to help him so much. And then also just physically, once he gets another summer of work under his belt, being in the NBA, he gets used to the length, the athleticism of players. That's something that guys that come into the league aren't used to. But for Keyonte, I think he definitely will get better at that. So yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that he's going to be a solid player for the Jazz. I think he was the right guy to select at that slot. They had a need there. They drafted for need, but they also drafted a pretty talented player. So it's not like they just took a safe bet with Keyonte. They really went for a player that can be very dynamic, and sometimes he already is. He had a big time game against the Miami Heat just a couple of weeks ago. I believe it was December 30th in Utah. He had some big time shots. He was playing down the stretch. He got some clutch minutes with Utah. So those experiences are a really good indicator of what he can do in the future. If he's already getting some clutch time minutes, he's already hitting big shots. He's not afraid of the moment. He has a knack for hitting tough shots. I think he's going to grow into one of those players, Avi, that he almost shoots better, or it seems like he shoots a better percentage covered or semi-covered rather than being an open shooter. There's some players like that, the Jamal Crawfords of the world and the J.R. Smiths, and it's just weird how that mentally works for a player to where they feel more comfortable under duress when it seems like they should be showing a lower percentage. But that's just one of those like random things that came to me. I really just kind of feel like he's going to grow into that kind of player.
that feels about right to me. I love that Randy this was talking about J.R. Smith because sometimes when I watch him shoot, that's how I feel.
It's like, what are you doing, man? And then all of a sudden it's going in. It's like, well, that works for you. Keep it rolling.
That's the Keyonte experience.
Absolutely, man.